All right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with James Warren. James, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Good, good. Doing well. Thanks for asking, and thanks for taking some time to talk today.
Yeah. Excited to just chat for a little bit. So,
Awesome. So, James is a really cool person that I came across a story recently, and I'm sure he'll dive into it a little bit. But basically, the long and short of it is he's based out of Colorado, and he was building some benches at bus stops and kind of just helping with the community that way. And he had a nice message on the benches that was "Be kind," and that really is what spoke to me. It'd be one thing if you're just making benches and helping people that way, but the "Be kind" piece that just really resonated with me. So that's a little bit just about how I know James and his story. But do you mind kind of diving into your background, who you are, what you're doing these days, all that good stuff?
yeah, totally. Yeah, awesome. And it's cool to hear. It's cool to hear sort of the how the message resonated with you. It's something that like you said, I throw on all the benches, and I'm sure some people look at it and say, "All right, whatever." Like you soy boy. Like whatever.
Right.
But other people, it seems to really stick with them, and that's the point. It's this easy thing we can all take with us. But yeah, I didn't grow up in. I live in Denver now. I didn't grow up here. I grew up near DC, but I'm somebody who is fairly interested in sort of um, changing our lived environment, right? And you can call that different things, right? I've got a friend who calls it terraforming. Anytime you change the world around you, he calls it terraforming. But I kind of tend to think about these things in terms of policy decisions, because frankly, that is what changes so much of the world around us. And
Hmm.
so, to that end, I'm fairly involved with advocacy in my area, a lot of mobility advocacy. So, walking, rolling on in a wheelchair or a mobility device, biking, just reclaiming our streets for people, making them more human centric. All of that occupies a lot of my time. I'm very focused on that from like policy level, and ultimately, I think this all comes down to community. I'm
Hmm.
just like, I don't know. I am somebody who, at different times in his life, has dealt with things like depression and deep feelings of loneliness and stuff. And I really do think that community is lacking in our world. And I think that a big part of that is that we have constructed a world that is not conducive to community, right? Like you probably don't walk to work, or at least most people listening to
Right.
this probably do not walk to work.
Correct.
They probably walk 10 feet to their car, from their building to their car,
Yep.
get in their car. They're in a little box. They're angry at everyone else around them on the road because they're not interacting with them in any human way. They get to their office, then they're annoyed with their coworkers and they go home, you know,
Hmm.
um, and, we're just, monkeys in pants. We're not like, we're not meant to be sort of like living in this society we created in the way that we do. And figuring out ways to like bring that community back, I think is going to sort of solve or ameliorate some of these depressive conditions that led people like me to feeling really isolated, and lead a lot of my friends to feeling isolated, and lead a lot of people in the world to feeling isolated. So I'm sorry I just rambled. That's
No,
all over the
no.
place, but
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I think, community is huge and it's very important to have. And um, the isolation feeling can be tough, especially if you think back to the last few years that we've
mm,
experienced with everything in the world going on. And um, I mean, a forced isolation for a lot of people. So
yeah.
it's definitely kind of like coming out of that and seeing how all the changes are impacting the way that we live
Mm,
now. And of course, there's a lot more remote work from home, hybrid
mm,
jobs now, which I think a lot of people like. There's some people that don't like them for sure. They like that, office feel and stuff. And I think it's interesting because when I think of like work from home, I think like, oh, that's great. Like you roll out of bed, you turn on your
yeah.
computer, you go. But then, like you just pointed out, James, like you miss that community aspect of like,
Mm,
sure, you might hop on a web call with your team or your
right,
coworkers,
right.
but it's not the same as that in-person community that you can build.
Yeah, and even just like to your point about like the web call, you're getting on a call with a specific purpose.
Hmm.
Oh, we are calling to look at a spreadsheet together. We are
Yeah.
calling to figure out some program that we're rolling out in some specific way. And fine, great. I'm all about earmarking time specifically for one task. That's important. But you do miss the, oh, I'm walking by your cubicle and I'm saying, hey, and I'm asking about your weekend. And
Hmm.
you don't make time for that in the office because you just have it throughout the day.
Right.
And I'm not somebody who thinks that we need to be getting our social interactions through work. In fact, I think that it's totally appropriate for you to say, no, I'm here to get a paycheck. Like if that's,
Yeah.
your approach to life, that's totally fine. I think a lot of people approach their work like this allows me to do things outside of work. But
Hmm.
what's important is having a space outside of work and frankly outside of the home that is social, that is communal. And
Hmm.
even something like I don't own a car, and so especially during the winter months, I ride transit a lot,
Okay.
and I find that these like small interactions that like, oh man, can you believe how cold it is, or like, oh, the bus is late again, like just like the most surface level conversation I have with um, strangers, that just adds this component to my life that is full of depth
Hmm.
and makes me fuller, makes me more well-rounded. It takes me outside of myself because I'm interacting with other people. I'm not just thinking insular, it's all James, James, James. It's like, no, I'm in this world of other people. We're all on the bus, we're
Yeah.
all on the train, whatever it is. And yeah, I think that that's important in its own right, but also creating
Yeah.
spaces for deeper interaction with friends and with family.
Definitely. I agree with you completely. And it's funny and good to hear that because I think about myself and I'm always that person that like if I'm in an elevator and there's
Yeah,
someone in there, like I'm just gonna start talking to them. Like I don't care.
yeah,
Like I'll
that's
make
awesome.
some conversation. Like if it's, for like a going to a sporting event, from the parking garage, like I'll say, something about the team I'm gonna go watch or whatever. Or like
Yeah,
I think back to like, school, eating in a cafeteria. Just like if someone's sitting alone, like hey, do you mind if I join you at the table or something? Just having a conversation. I think it's like it's very easy for kind of like you're saying the way that we've created the world to be in our own bubble and just to like be like so rapid, fast paced that like we don't think to stop and ask the person that like we see in the cafeteria that we eat at every day, but we don't even know their name, to just stop and
right.
say, hey, like I'm Zach, nice to meet you or something. So I think, yeah, like
Absolutely.
even those conversations that you might think like are really mundane or like you go pick up your dinner every Friday night from the same place, but you've never, had a conversation with the person that you pick it up from. Like just stopping to do those things can be really just adding depth to your life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that one of the wonderful things about living in the age that we do is that we have access to so much.
Hmm.
Um, Not just on the internet where you have a million billion stimuli every moment you can have anything you want, but also even just like the ability to essentially teleport yourself to another environment in a car or in a train or on a bike or whatever, and do different things. You can be, if you're in a city, you can be at a different brewery every weekend,
Hmm.
or you can go to, and that's all. That's fun. I appreciate that thing. I'm not trying to like rag on that because I actually quite think that's a wonderful thing. But at the same time, I think that um, it's hard to slow down and appreciate your block.
Yeah.
The street that you live on, the grass outside your home. Like just to slow down and be with those things all the time. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that there are. I tend to think about these things from like a fundamental level, like, well, why are we this way? And I think that just like in nature, we were surrounded by like 50 people tops,
Hmm.
way back when in like hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Right.
It was like we were around a small group of people and we saw the same people, and maybe we weren't best friends with everybody in the community, but we had to get along with everybody, and we had to figure out how to get through struggles with one another. And
Hmm.
our connections on some level were deeper than many of the connections we have today. And so trying to find out how to construct our environment and how to bring us back to sort of more natural ways of being,
Hmm.
without forcing us to live around campfires again,
Right.
because I'm not an anarcho primitivist. I'm not like insisting that we return to the monkey world,
Right.
um but yeah, just trying to figure out, okay, what would it mean to see people and live with people more intentionally? What would it mean to have conversations with people um that we don't know, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So
Definitely. And James, as I'm listening to you talk now and just like from conversations we've had like outside this recording, I can tell you just have this very just big passion for the things that you're talking about. And you have a lot of just thoughts and opinions on these topics that I don't want to say like are uncommon, but it's like it's not maybe what you'd hear, mainstream and stuff. And I think it's really unique to hear that perspective. And I'm just wondering, where did that come from? Like, has this always been you, who you are, your personality, your thoughts on things, or was there like a moment where that kind of clicked for you, or did you have like someone that was like a mentor that kind of helped you expand your thoughts on this topic?
I think, well, I mean, I think that I've always had a natural propensity to kind of um look at the why, look at the,
Okay.
try to dig a level deeper. And to that end, to your point about mentors, I've had incredible friends in my life. My friend Sam, who is just like a great mentor and helped me understand people who weren't like me,
Hmm.
and understand. I don't know. I have been incredibly lucky to have people who have poured into me and who have been willing to meet me where I was and all of that. And I've been incredibly lucky. But I also just think that yeah, like if I get an assignment at work, for instance, it's not enough for me to know what to do. I need to know
Okay.
how it fits into things.
Okay.
What's this big picture? And if I don't, I have a I have a lot of trouble doing it, right? Because like it's like, trying to guide a ship in
Hmm.
fog. It's, well, I don't know if I'm going the right way. I might be guiding the ship, but am I doing this in the way that is better for everybody? And so I think it is just sort of something that I focus on, is just, why are we, you look around, you look at like statistics, depression is on the rise,
Hmm.
um, deaths of despair, suicide and overdose are on the rise. And it's one thing to look at that and go, oh man, that sucks. How do we stop that? Right. But it's another thing to say, well, why is that happening in the first place? Right.
Yeah.
Why are people finding themselves so isolated, so alone, so depressed? And there has to be there's an answer out there. I don't claim I know it. I have some ideas about some things that might be contributing to it, but of course I don't know the solution. Um, but something is causing it, and it's important, I
Yeah.
think, for us to, as individuals and as a society, look for that why, look for the,
Hmm.
and not just to frame it in terms of like depressing, sad stuff,
Sure.
right? But also like, how do we live a life where we're full, where we're content, right? How do we, like, if we examine why, then I think fewer of us will say to ourselves on our deathbeds, I should have spent less time at the office, right? Or find ourselves in a moment not enjoying something,
Yeah.
like surrounding ourselves with people that we love, feeling successful merely for being in community. Those are the type of things that I think um, we can we can find for ourselves if we just really think a little bit more about what brings us contentment, happiness, you know, fulfillment, well-being, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah, that's
So
really important. And I think it's like kind of like we were talking about earlier with kind of just getting in that rhythm and that routine of life and just doing things to do it. You're not thinking about the why behind it. And it's like that idea of being continuously curious about our existence, our the things we're
yeah.
doing, why people are the way that we are, why we do what we do. And that's what led me for my bachelor's for psychology, just like the
Mm,
study of people and like why we do what we do. Social
yeah.
psychology specifically, I think is super fascinating. And I think as you mentioned, just thinking about the things that are more maybe mental health and the kind
Mm,
of how that's trending, but also the other things in our life that fill us up, and like why does you know working on this passion or spending time with this group of friends or doing this with my family once a week, why does that bring joy to my life, and like how can I continue to do that and optimize that and maximize that, so we are bringing those feelings of like contentment and fullness to life, because I think it's very easy for us to just get in that routine where it's like we're not really living our lives, we're just doing our lives, and it's like
yeah.
just on autopilot, which I mean to some people that might be perfectly fine, but I
Sure.
think there's definitely a certain group of individuals who don't want to live that way. And I think you and I are two people that fall in that camp where like we want to have like that kind of higher purpose and know why we're doing what we're doing and everything.
Yeah. This is just, I've felt for a long time that, finding what's passionate, whatever that is so important. And I used to work with this woman at a breakfast place I worked at, and her passion in life was Ricky Martin, the
Okay.
singer.
Yeah,
She had
yeah.
been to she saved up money specifically go to Ricky Martin concerts. She like had been to enough that he recognizes her and brings her up on stage to dance with him. Like,
Okay.
just like Ricky Martin, Ricky Martin, Ricky Martin. She was showing me videos on her phone. It was everything in the world to her, you
Yeah.
know? And on some level, you want to look at that and be like, oh, celebrity worship, so stupid, right? And, you know, maybe there's a point where we as a society need to step back a little bit from celebrity worship. But at the same time, she really loves his music. She thinks he's really cool. And um, Ricky Martin is what is going to save the world. And because if everybody could be that passionate about something,
Hmm.
I really do think that our world would be full of, that the walls of every building would be painted by muralists. We would
Hmm.
have, people out exercising together. We would have all these different passions, flowing together like streams into a large river that just would carry us forward as a society. And
Hmm.
helping people discover that is so important. And to that end, I think that this podcast is really cool because you're highlighting these passions, and you're not necessarily saying now everybody go build benches or go play the ukulele or or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just highlighting them. And so I wonder if I can flip the script a little bit
Yeah.
on you. I wonder sort of like, how did you identify like passion? How did you like choose that to be your focal point for conversation in all this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I might have found like a co-host or something for the podcast. James is doing a great job talking about passions. But no, for me, I've always been a big believer in just spending time and investing in your passions and doing those things that give you joy. Because I think like for me, I have always enjoyed school for the most part, but there are definitely classes or semesters where I'm like,
Mm,
oh man, this is just a drag. Like
yeah.
I just need to do, in my free time, play the guitar or play some
Mm,
video games, hang out with friends, family, whatever, I'm passionate about. And, as I've gotten older, I've kind of learned just the importance of doing that. And as I've started like my professional career and everything, it's been a lot of like, does this job give me fulfillment? Yes or no?
mm,
If it does, great. If not, then that's okay if it gives me kind of, the ability to live and have like free time and stuff like that. So that's really kind of when I just wanted to like start looking in on passions and my own passions and how I was utilizing them. And
mm,
then as I was talking to people, really the podcast started during like a lot of the heavy lockdown time of
mm,
COVID, where I was just connecting with friends and even strangers on a higher frequency just because like I'm sitting at home, I don't have much time. I want that community that we mentioned. So it's like, how can I do that from, being far away from people? So just
right.
having conversations with people and seeing how passionate people are about things. And of course, if you have someone that you're best friends with for 20 years, you're probably both passionate about very similar things.
Right.
But then you start talking to other folks and you're like, okay, that's a really cool passion. And I love the Ricky Martin example from that
Right.
old coworker of yours in the sense that it's like, really, that's what I thought was cool about passions. It could be so different for so many people, and it doesn't have to be an activity. It can be, it could be a person like Ricky Martin. It could
Right.
be, it could be like just a passion for mental health. It could be a
Mm,
passion for policy. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm passionate about playing an instrument. I'm passionate about baking. It's just so wide and deep. And I think that another reason why I identified with passion is because I think a lot of folks want to do something with their passions, but maybe they're scared or they're unsure or they're told that that's not practical. And maybe someone's passion is like animals, so they want to become a vet, but
yeah.
they've been a teacher for all their life, so that
Mm,
might seem not practical. But then maybe some people are like, I'm passionate about making YouTube videos and vlogging and stuff, and it's just like, should I do that? Is that safe? Is that stable? So I
right.
really just wanted to highlight the passions because I think we have so many different ones. And then also just to show the listeners that like everyone starts somewhere and it's just a matter of taking that passion and just doing it for yourself, doing it for the fun of it. You don't have to sit here and say, oh, I'm going to make this, my life's work, or,
Right.
this is going to pay my bills. Just do it for you, and who knows what could happen from there.
Right. Yeah. And if this is truly a passion of yours, then every moment is a used and fulfilling moment, right?
Hmm.
um there's no kind of wasting time when it comes to these things, in my view.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at guitar. I can play chords. I love it. It's a joy for me.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be a professional guitarist. I'm never going to perform in front of people in any sense. That's okay. It's not about that for me. I just enjoy the music. And my younger brother is a musician, and so his passion is X amount
Yeah.
times greater than mine for guitar, and he's made a career of it. He's made a life of it, and that's awesome. It's a cool path to go down. It's not what I want, and it's not what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep playing my guitar, and I think that yeah, I would say, like, yeah, just it doesn't need to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
You can just love things, enjoy things, and if they make you happy, then they make you happy. If it's Ricky Martin, or if it's guitar, or if it's building benches, or
Exactly.
advocating. I don't know. I sometimes I talk to people, and because I do a lot of advocacy. I do that's something that's important to me, and people will be like, oh, I should do that more, I should
Hmm.
get out and volunteer more, and it's like, well, maybe, like, if you actually want to, then sure, but if you're going to be like bummed that you're out doing this the whole time, then like don't volunteer, or like find a different way to volunteer, right? Like you
Hmm.
said, like, if you are passionate about animals, maybe don't go volunteer painting, houses,
Sure.
or at a soup kitchen or something like that. Go volunteer at like the Dumb Friends League. Like, there's, I don't know. I think sometimes people can compare themselves, and it's like, no, that's not what it's about. It's like, just like about finding things that make you fulfilled, make you
Exactly.
increase your well-being. And if you can
Exactly.
decrease the amount of suffering in the world at the same time, or increase the well-being of others at the same time, then awesome. That's gravy.
Right. Definitely. I think that's a great point that, even for me, I've been in that point where I have that all or nothing mentality where it's like, oh, I'm passionate about, I'll just use the podcast, for example. Like, I'm passionate
Yeah.
about this podcast. Like, I have to make it super successful, and I have to be able to live off it, and I
Mm,
have to do all this or that, or it's a failure. When really it's like, I'm at the point where I don't care if anyone listens to this. Like, everyone could
yeah.
stop listening, but I'm enjoying these conversations. And, on my deathbed, to go back to that analogy you used earlier, like, I can listen to all the episodes that I've ever recorded for
Yeah.
this and just like smile and
Yeah.
laugh and have a good time, and like just know that this was for me, and this was connecting with folks that, maybe I've known all my life, maybe I haven't known. And, I think, James, you're a great example of someone that, we've messaged back and forth. Now we're having a live conversation. And, at the conclusion of this podcast, like, I hope that we keep chatting and just talking about life, and, just building that connection. I think that that's something that it's just that, to me, just human connection is the whole purpose and point of life. And however I can do that, that's what gets me excited. And that's what made me want to do a podcast in the first place, just to connect with people and to share people's stories and passions and just these messages with, other folks that listen. I mean, even the idea that you've brought up mental health in this conversation, like, I think that's a topic that as a society we're getting better at talking about, but
Mm,
it's still something that we don't talk about enough.
yeah.
And even if it's like one person listens to this and is like, oh, like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of isolated and I get kind of sad, maybe that's a bit of depression or something, like,
Yeah.
then I think we did our due diligence to just have that conversation, normalize these conversations, and just to give a sense of community through these calls and stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, we have at our fingertips a technology and a power
Hmm.
unprecedented in human history,
Right.
and this power can be, just like probably any tool, any power can be used for good or evil, right?
Hmm.
Think about nuclear technology. We have the power on one side to generate nearly clean, abundant energy, and on the other side we have the power to wreak untold devastation.
Yeah.
Those are, it from an incredibly powerful tool, you have the power to do great good or great harm. And I think with social media and with video calls and podcasts and stuff, there's the same opportunity present. And um, maybe sort of like the powers that be or whatever have chosen to keep us on the app, keep us enraged, whatever. I was
Hmm.
listening to a podcast about how the the emotion that keeps people on Facebook and Twitter the longest is outrage. And
Hmm.
so that's the emotion that they try to evoke for
Yeah.
you when you're on those apps. And so there is this sort of like tale of devastation. There's this tale
Hmm.
of destruction that is being taught and is being spelled out right now through these things. But we also have the opportunity to use them for good, to use them
Yeah.
to connect and to be positive and to encourage and to advocate and to have productive conversation, and to, like you said, talk about things like mental health, right? Who knows? Maybe somebody who you've never met, who I've never met, who lives in a sort of very traditional community might listen to this, and they are dealing with feelings of depression too. And, maybe even seeking out mental health care treatment would be sort of anathematized in their community.
Hmm.
And, you know, listen to our voices. Don't go seek help, go seek,
Hmm.
treatment, go, I'm somebody who takes medication for my mental well-being. And, here we have the opportunity now, instead of to wreak devastation, to wrought a new world of well-being for
Exactly.
people. And I don't think that these technologies are, despite their sort of seemingly increasingly negative influence on the world, I don't think that that is their destiny necessarily.
Right.
It's just a new clumsy tool in our hands right now,
Yeah.
and we can shape them how we choose. And at first, it will just need to be individuals like
Hmm.
fighting back against the system. But I also think that in the long run, we may be able to, I don't know, use them for great good in our world.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely hopeful of that as well. And I mean, yeah, it's that common like example that, even like a hammer, it could be a tool or it could be a
Mm,
weapon. It just, depends on the way that you use it. It's those two
yeah.
extremes. So I think that that's, a lot of what we look at, and just taking advantage of these opportunities and doing things for good. And I mean, I think that that goes back to, the story that you have, James, with the benches and everything about, like,
Mm,
again, you could have just built a bench and just call it a day, but just adding that "be kind" phrase, I think that is, taking it the next level to increase the well-being and to just spread a good message that, I think of myself, like if I'm just walking down a random street and I saw a bench that said "be kind" on it, like I would just stop and question it and think like, I wonder why, or what's the
mm,
point of that, or who did that, or,
yeah.
was that the original design, or did someone add that years
Right.
later? And even like taking personal inventory of like, have I been kind today? What can I
Mm.
do to be kind to the next person I encounter, or just throughout this whole day? So, kind of like the question you asked me about like why passion. I want to use that and ask you like, why be kind out of anything that you could have put? Why was that the phrase that you went with?
Yeah, totally. And I could have written some manifesto about, the powers that be and
Yeah.
whatever. And people would not have taken time to read the 8-point font on the bench. But I think that there's like, yeah, there everybody can be kind. Everybody knows exactly what it means to be kind in a given moment, right?
Hmm.
Even if it's just smiling at somebody in our society, or saying hey, or not being rude, or just taking a moment to extend a little bit more empathy, and think, oh, like that person who I was judging for this or that, I don't know what's going on. Anyone knows how to be kind, but often we just need a little reminder.
Yeah.
And I think that small kindness is the kind of stuff that makes or breaks your day, makes or
Yeah.
breaks your lived experience, right? um I was walking back from the store with a coworker, and we just like were chatting with a couple homeless people who lived outside the building where we work. And they were saying to us, oh my gosh, like, I cannot believe you guys are talking to us. This is nobody talks to us. And the like you know the, to me it was just like, I'm just chatting with somebody, you know but to them it was just a little bit of kindness that they don't get.
Hmm.
And I have no doubt that they will, that they appreciate that, and that they're thinking about that, and that it did make their day better.
Yeah.
And I feel that all the time too, when somebody lends a hand. I was getting on the bus the other day with a big potted plant in one hand, and a bag in the other, and somebody helped me get it onto the bus. And it's like, well, here we are still talking about it, right? It made
Yeah.
such an impact on me. And to them it was probably just like, oh yeah, let me help this guy out real quick,
Right.
like not even thinking about it, just like a tiny little bit of kindness. And it can go a long way. I think just
Hmm.
sometimes we need a little reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And I think, again, we underestimate the power that we have just throughout our regular daily lives and lived experiences of like, if I just smile more. Like everyone I pass on the street, if I smile at them,
Right.
that could impact their lives in ways that you won't ever see. And in ways that, like, again, they might be talking about it for days to come. Like, oh my gosh, guys, I just got fired from my job and I was so sad and just like confused about my direction. And then this random stranger, smiled, held the door open for me and said, have a good day. And that was just like, wow, that, the
Yeah.
just the genuine connection and the kindness, it means a lot. So I definitely am a big fan of that. And yeah, I mean, I love the examples that you shared of like a lot of the times we think that maybe what we're doing isn't like profound or anything, like helping someone,
Hey.
get on the bus or just talking to, someone, in that might be homeless or just, talking to just anyone in general. It's like you might not think that that's a crazy thing you're doing, but it could impact in various ways.
Yeah. And you know, maybe it won't too. Like that's the
Right. That's
that's the
true.
other half of it. But at the
That's
same
true.
time, I mean, I've read, and I read this years ago, and I don't have a source for you, so I'm apologetic on
It's
this front.
okay.
But that just smiling alone, even if you don't feel happy, makes you feel happy. That like your brain is like, or detects or whatever, that you're smiling,
Hmm.
and it releases endorphins in the same way that like just like natural happiness does. And so even you extending kindness, even if that person never thinks about it again in their life or doesn't even feel anything in that moment, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like I'm more of a part of things. If I'm helping somebody get on the bus with whatever, I'm feeling like a part of their life. I'm feeling like a part of my community.
Right.
If I'm greeting, hey, how's it going, to neighbors, I'm feeling like a part of my neighborhood.
Hmm.
And um and that, going back to what we were talking about earlier with being disconnected from community is, a source of probably a lot of psychological distress.
Hmm.
That's a big way to remedy that in our own lives
Right.
is we if we are kind, if we are a part of our community, then we're going to feel much more fulfilled, I think. I'm not a scientist, I can't back this up with any data, but I don't think I necessarily need to. I think that probably anyone listening knows what I'm talking about, that when you do something to help a neighbor, even if you stop to help someone who's broken down on the side of the road, you know, um, like that kind of thing, it sticks with you.
Mm.
And who knows how it's going to affect other people? Probably a lot of the time people are going to appreciate it, but even if they don't, it's done a lot for yourself. So
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, even if you don't realize it right in this moment, I think we all know that like we just want to feel a part of something. We want to feel
yeah,
included. We want to feel like we belong and we have, I don't know, like a group of friends, a family, a work community, a community for your hobbies or your passions. I think we all just want to feel like we belong. And it sucks when you feel like you don't, if you
absolutely.
think back to maybe in school, if you didn't feel like you had that community of friends to hang out with, like that sucks. Like you feel alone,
Yeah,
you feel isolated, you feel like maybe there's something wrong with you, or just like self-doubt can creep in. So it's like we
right.
all want that sense of community. And I think that that's where we as a community need to do a little better and be just
Mm,
accepting of others and encouraging and just extend that hand and welcome people in and just be kind and show that kindness to everyone because you never know who's carrying what with them,
yeah.
on their life and on their plates at the given time. So just to give people the benefit of the doubt, to just be warm and welcoming and encouraging and just I truly believe, we can have a community that's vast and, just bringing people in from all over different walks of life. And I think that that's when we add just more to our lives in terms of
Mm,
fulfillment by expanding our own communities and, seeking community from folks with different backgrounds, with different
yeah,
experiences. Like I mean, if you have a community that's just the same as you, like,
yeah,
that's fine, but it expands kind of your experiences and your lived experiences, which I think is super important.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think um, that is, a big part about being in your community is that um, the people who I work with are a lot like me in terms of their focus in life, their socioeconomic background, all of those things. But the people in my neighborhood, well, there's some similarity, I guess, in terms of, we're not living in like a super upscale neighborhood. We're not,
Hmm.
living in a slum or something like that. But beyond that, there's very little that is, the same between us.
Right.
And that's an opportunity for me to, yeah, meet people who aren't like me, meet people who have totally different interests, passions, priorities, people who have families, people who don't, people who have, you name it.
Hmm.
I think that, yeah. And I think that, beyond just having more empathy for people unlike us, and being able to understand them, I think it also just like expands your own worldview, where you can be like, oh, cool. I did not know, that I had, uh, you know, a lot of Jewish neighbors or a lot of
Hmm.
Ethiopian neighbors. And like, it's so cool to like understand their culture a little bit better. Like what a rich time in history that we get to live, that, we're not, like, I'm not just like some Englishman surrounded by other Englishmen in the countryside, like I get to
Right.
live around and be around people from totally different backgrounds, from totally different upbringings, from,
Hmm.
that's a really cool, I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, um,
And
and the more we can experience it in this brief flicker of consciousness, the more I think we will have a rich flicker of consciousness,
I
so.
agree. I agree. Yeah, just adding that richness to our lives, something that we all need and will really appreciate. So I totally agree with you, everything you said there. Um, yeah, it's been a really good conversation, James, and I really appreciate all the insight that you've shared just about like your experiences in your life. And I think it's really given me, we've talked about like finding the why and questioning things, and a lot
Mm,
of what you've said it's caused me to just like sit back in my life and just like think about things and think about
mm,
my perspective and take on maybe some of the perspectives that you have and just see how I can, make changes or just build a community or just find fulfillment in my life. So I have to thank you on that. And I know you mentioned kind of the idea of like doing things that make you happy, right? So like
mm.
maybe, you know, you're passionate about volunteering, for example, like maybe someone listening to this might like they might be miserable doing it or maybe miserable volunteering at a soup kitchen. So it's like we're not really encouraging them to do that, right? We can't necessarily tell them to do exactly what I do, exactly what you do.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe from like a large scope view, to anyone listening, do you have any practical suggestions on things that maybe if they're kind of questioning, what can I do to form community or what can I do to be kind? How can I do that? Or how can I get involved with advocacy or anything of the sort, policy even? Like, do you have any suggestions that people could try to implement or work towards or work on?
Yeah. I would say that, um, I would be amazed if you lived in a place that does not already have basically any group that you want to be a part of.
Hmm.
If you are like me, you're very interested in sort of like urban design and the safety of our streets and stuff. I'm very plugged in with the Denver Streets Partnership here in Denver, but I guarantee you, if you just Google, the name of your city or town and urbanist or something like that, you'll find something, right? Like and it could be that, it could be, working with animals. Like I would say, just again, we've got this amazing tool at our disposal,
Hmm.
and if you just Google the name of your town and find a group. And the scariest thing legitimately is going to be like showing up to that first meeting where you don't know people and where you are like the new guy, and where you are um not maybe even as knowledgeable about this thing that you're passionate about as other people in the room. Like, all of that stuff is scary and intimidating, but also all of those people share something with you, that I think is going to create some incredible friendships. And you know it's the same thing with like your neighbors, right? It's a lot to like knock on your neighbor's door. Like, if I went over to like the apartment upstairs and just knocked on his door and was like, hey, you want to come over for dinner? I'm not asking people to do that, right?
Right.
But you can say hi. You can say hi. And it's a little bit tougher in sort of suburban areas where there's separated houses and all that kind of stuff. You probably aren't seeing your neighbors quite as often, but it's definitely possible, especially if you're ever downtown or in town for things like that. Just start with hi, start with
Hmm.
why and start with hi, um,
I love that. Start with why,
yeah.
start with I. Okay.
And just take those little steps, showing up to things and trying to be a part of things. And even if, even if you're not ready for that, or even if you don't feel like you have time, invite a friend over for dinner,
Hmm.
um, community is just as much forging new connections as it is deepening the ones we already have. And so that's important too. So I, I think there are a lot of ways to get plugged in. And I find that advocacy and volunteering is an incredible one, because you are making a difference in the world. And you end up feeling really good about yourself, and you get to be a part of something that is, moving toward a world that you want. And so whatever that is, even if it's like the Ricky Martin fan club, get out there and try to get plugged in, because it exists, and I think you'll feel so happy that you did. So I know I have been. So
Awesome. That's perfect. And, to anyone listening, I think James and I are talking about things that we're passionate about, or, just getting involved and finding a community around a passion that you have. But at the same time, if you don't know what your passions are, like, that's totally cool. I think that's honestly maybe
mm,
even more of an exciting place to be, because then it's like the world is your oyster. Like, you can try so many different things, you can volunteer for so many different causes. And if you try, different activities, or volunteering for different things, they might not all click with you, and that's okay. Like, don't
yeah,
feel like, there's something wrong with me because I don't like, you know, humane societies, or working
yeah,
with animals. Like, oh, I'm a terrible person because I don't like dogs. No, like, I mean, I think this is the time to explore and find that community. And like, if you feel like, like this community is great, but I don't like, you know, guitar, which everyone else loves here. Like, that's okay to, you don't have to like completely shut yourself out from that community. Like, if you made
mhm.
some connections, still you can keep in touch and connect on other things. But don't be afraid to just put yourself out there. Like James was saying, that is probably the most intimidating and scary thing to do. But it can really add so much richness to your life when you do find that community that really clicks with you, or that activity or passion.
And I've experienced this where I've gone to certain events and done volunteering or whatever,
Hmm.
and not even loved the organization that I started with, but got connected through that event to other organizations that I actually really loved.
Yeah.
And I have friends that I've made that are like, friends I've had for years now, that I've just met at these events. And um some you stay with one group for a couple months because they're just fine. They're not,
Hmm.
it's not your scene. But they help you connect to other things in the world as well. And so taking that first step of just going to a meeting, going to an event, whatever it is, it is much more than just about the event.
Hmm.
It's about forming this network, this branching network that you can make work for you. So yeah.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people have maybe heard the expression of like, probably more so with jobs, like using a job as like a stepping stone to the next one. I think, exactly what James just explained is like kind of that mentality of like using it as a stepping stone. Like, it
Yeah.
might not be the community that, or the exact group within the community that really resonates with you, or the event, but that connections can lead you to other ones that really do resonate. So, don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and kind of explore and navigate a little bit. It doesn't have to be this linear path that you follow. It's going to have curves and winds and everything. But that's just part of the process of, I kind of just like self-discovery and just finding the things that really resonate. So totally agree with that. You know, I I think I don't know if I can go on without asking you a why question, because we talked
Sure.
about how you um built these benches, and you use the term be kind and everything, but just the root of that is like, why did you
Yeah.
embark on that journey in the first place of benches, of all the things you could have done with your time? What's your why for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I like I mentioned, I don't have a car, so I'm somebody who's dependent on the bus and the train
Hmm.
for a long time. Um and so I was just of course aware that uh not every bus stop had benches, right?
Hmm.
That's something I knew. If you asked me, do you always sit at a bus stop? I would have said no, of course not.
Yeah.
There's not always an opportunity to do that. But it wasn't until I was walking home one day with my groceries, and I passed by this woman who was sitting at a bus stop that also didn't have a sidewalk, so she was sitting in the dirt, and it just made me think, oh my god, that's so undignified. That's not a way we should be treating our transit riders in this city. And so somebody should do something. And I was like, oh, I could do something. And there's a lot of construction going on around, so sometimes I ransack the construction dumpsters and find some good wood, and I know my way around tools, because I just kind of have always had tools around. So I slapped together some wood and made a bench, and wood burned be kind on it, and just started putting them out. And I've put out like 10 this year.
Okay.
And yeah, I just build them whenever I feel like it. Some days I'm like, yeah, this will be fun, go work with my hands, go get a little
Yeah.
dirty. Other days I'm like, no, I'm just going to play some video games. And you know and At the end of the day, it's just about making the sort of world around me, my community, a little bit of a nicer place to go to work, go to get groceries, whatever it is for transit riders, and
Yeah.
add a little bit more dignity to how they're experiencing the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, I think that, even just as simple as like that kind of provoked the thought of like people that use public transportation, like, maybe that's a portion of the community that gets forgotten about, at
Yeah.
times. And as someone like myself who drives, everywhere I have to go, like I don't really think about that. Like when you said, are there benches at every bus stop? I have no idea. Like I couldn't tell you. And
Sure.
even if you're like, hey, like, where would you go to take a bus? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Like I just don't have to think about those things. And in one sense, you could look at that as like a luxury or privilege or just even just like as a to me, it's kind of like, almost like an opportunity of growth for me of like, why don't I know these things? Like you know, what if I meet someone who is reliant on public transportation? Like, how can I
Right.
be of service of them or assist them if they just move to the area and join this community? I want to have those resources or the knowledge, or even like, how would I figure out, this
Yeah.
knowledge? So it just, again, it expands my thought process and just things. So I really do like that you shared that, and I think it's really cool that you've been able to do that for your community. And is it's just out of curiosity, is that something that just like the whole bench building process and doing that for communities, is that something that you want to expand outside of your general area, or is that like a even like a nonprofit idea that you've kicked around or anything to expand it to different states? Or do you have any like thoughts for growth or expansion with that, or is that even something you're interested in?
I think that for me, it's sort of like this. I don't know. I'm happy. Like I've had people come and help me make them. I
Hmm.
had a nearby landlord who had all this extra wood and he like donated it to me. I had some gals who donated some old shelving to me that I turned into benches. And so there's definitely a community aspect to that. And I'm happy when people come here to do it. Um, but frankly, I would, and I've had people even reach out to tell me that they've done this. It's people build in their own community,
Yeah.
build benches, they know what needs being done in their community more than I do. And
Hmm.
the more that people can just be working within their own little sphere and doing that, that makes me happy. I
Okay.
would never want to like go to Minneapolis and tell them you need to do better with your bus stop. I don't know anything about Minneapolis. I don't know
Right.
anything about like right. I know
Yeah.
about Denver and I know specifically about my little corner of Denver.
Okay.
And I don't really want to. Yeah, I mean that would be cool, and I'm sure that would open up new doors. But I think that for now, I'm kind of just folks doing it and hoping it makes their lives a little bit better. And
Yeah.
frankly, having conversations like this one is a big part of it too, where you were just saying, oh, I wouldn't even know how to direct someone to the nearest bus stop or anything
Hmm.
like that. And I would just say like, try figuring out just like getting next time you get groceries, just
Yeah.
like be like, I'm gonna ride the bus this time,
Yeah.
and at the very least, you're just going to have like a new uncomfortable experience that's like interesting and different and maybe save some carbon emissions or whatever.
Right.
You may interact with people, you may have conversations, you may, and then later somebody says, hey, I'm trying to get to the grocery store. Do you know the nearest bus stop? And you're like, actually, I do,
Exactly.
and you can make a big difference for that person. So I think that having those kind of experiences can really, I don't know, grow us as people and
Hmm.
make us more full. And I guess that's sort of part of what having these conversations is all about, is expanding people's understanding of the world that we live in, and yet often it's easy to not really take in and say, oh man, this
Exactly.
sidewalk's too narrow, or
Hmm.
oh man, there's no bench here, or oh man, there's not a whole lot of trees on this downtown sidewalk. What's up with that?
Right.
These are all decisions that somebody made at some point. Somebody
Hmm.
actively made these decisions. Do we put a tree in? Do we not? Do we put a bench in? Do we not? How wide are the sidewalks? All of those things were made, and often they're made with a lot of community input. And the more we can understand those things, the more we can input, and the more we can sort of change our little corner of the world.
Yeah. I mean, that was so well put, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And I can't agree more. I think that just again having these conversations and expanding our worldview, and just I mean, I've never been to Colorado. I've
You got to come
so like
out.
I know I want to. I definitely want to. So like I'm hearing kind of like just a little bit about your experience out that way, and I'm like that's cool. That feels like I may never go to Colorado in my life, but like I feel like I've taken in a little, tiny piece from your experience and from your worldview that helps me just view my world and my life and my experiences in a little different of a lens. So
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of the challenge that I'll extend to anyone listening to this podcast. Just, you're probably very used to your own life, your own circle, your surroundings, but try to tweak your worldview a little bit and be open to other experiences, open to other perspectives, worldviews, and just have those questions of like, your everyday life. Like try just take a day, a random day, go through the day and just ask yourself why, when it seems appropriate in that day, like, oh, I, you know, drove a block because, that
Yeah.
just seemed convenient. Like, why did I do that? Like, why didn't I walk? Why didn't I, find different means of transportation or like, just questioning things throughout our lives, or even kind of like James was saying, like, why is this sidewalk the way it is? Or why haven't I seen a tree in like 100 yards or something?
Right.
Like, just
Yeah.
like having those questions are super important. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. But James, this is kind of like the portion where if I always like to say, if there's ever anything in our conversations that someone listening really resonated with, or they want to get more information on, or maybe they want to hear about your story or your journey or anything, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with, like to check out, like whether it's a nonprofit or a way to get involved with advocacy or anything that you're working on or social media type things, anything that you'd like to leave people to check out?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I would just say I'm one guy doing just a
Hmm.
little tiny thing in my neck of the woods. And but there are we're greater than the sum of our parts when we come together. And often for me, that's with the Denver Streets Partnership.
Okay.
Denver Streets Partnership is incredible. They're fighting for better streets, better sidewalks, better mobility options for people to just get around our town. And they make a huge, huge, huge difference. And so if you're in the Denver area, go check them out. Go support them if you feel. Go volunteer at an event. If you're not in the Denver area, I guarantee you there's a similar organization near where you are. Check them out. Even just give them a follow just to see, sort of see what's going on. And even if you're not like into urban design, I would say just like follow them because that kind of stuff affects us in profound ways that we often don't even think about. So those would be my big plugs. You can follow me on Twitter, J_M_Warren, if you really feel like it. I can't promise anything interesting will be posted, but but yeah, I don't have too much going on. I would just say
Okay.
get out there, be kind, and be a part of your community.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, and I'll put some of those links and just different suggestions that James mentioned in the description of the episode, so you can check it out. Whether you're in the Denver area, then I'll put the exact one that you can check out, or I can put maybe suggestions or even find some in my local community to just plug and see if you want to check those out too. And like James said, give them a follow and just check out what they're doing. And that can be enriching for you, even if it's something that you know nothing about or just want to expand your view a little bit. And
Yeah.
then of course, I'll also throw down James's Twitter if you want to check him out. I know he said that there's, it might not be anything too interesting, but I'm a big believer in, building our community and surrounding our circle with people that are positive, people that are kind, and people that are not afraid to be a positive change in this world, even if it goes against the grain at times. And I can definitely say that James is one of those individuals who I think even if you just follow him and never interact or, see like one tweet every month or something, it might be one that really resonates with you. And
Hmm.
you're like, okay, that gave me some perspective on something. So definitely check him out as well. Um, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. And I feel like you've said a lot that will really sit with me and everyone listening. But any last final thoughts or messages that you want to close out with to the people that are listening?
What I mean, just something that you just said struck me, and I'll keep it brief, but
Yeah.
um, the tools that we have at our disposal often, they make us feel outraged. But we can also tweak those tools to be positive. We can tweak those tools to be inspiring, and that's something I've been trying to do. I'm not big on the social media, but the more I can follow the right people
Hmm.
and talk about the sort of positive things in our world, I feel like it's energizing and positive for me rather than this sort of suck on my soul.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I can't agree more with that. Just having that positivity and like James brought in that information earlier about like Facebook retention, human retention is because it enrages us or angers us. I think that a lot of like, I'm not saying don't listen to the news or like don't like be on social media, reading about different things, but like a lot of those things can elicit negative emotions, frustration, anger, outrage. It's all about what you surround yourself with. I
Mm,
truly, truly believe that if you surround yourself with all positive sources, whether it's, information, individuals, community, it's just going to have impacts on your life that you might not even realize in the moment, but it's just going to make you feel a little lighter and
mm,
give you that sense of fulfillment. So definitely, you know, find the positivity in anything, just
yeah.
whatever it is, just find the positivity and surround yourself with those positive sources.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you too. And I'm excited to follow along with your journey and see the things that you accomplish. But thank you. Thank you so much, James, for your time. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Yeah. Can't wait. All right.
All right.